Hey guys, life is beautiful. Keep living it. I'm going to share with you another letter from a viewer. This is from Glamdolly, who unfortunately, when I responded to her as Glamdolly 30, and I see that she's now going by Glamdolly 20. Anyway, here's what she has to say. Suzanne will not be forgotten, and nor will the horrific injustice she suffered literally at the hands of her evil, abusive husband and murderer. Only dumb fools and misogynists accept her killer's heinous slanders about the wife and mother of his children, who he murdered in cold blood. And by the way, as Suzanne herself was well aware, he'd been running around on her with umpteen women for years, yet apparently that's okay. It's the classic age-old double standard of male adultery and sexism. Keep up the excellent work. Another day in the car. Thank you. Yes, I love compliments. And then I gotta scroll because let's see. Barry Morphew is as guilty as sin. Daughters Mallory and Macy are undoubtedly his victims too, subjected to their father's narcissistic abuse and coercive control their entire lives. Sadly, Suzanne herself played a leading role in putting that scumbag on a pedestal and gaslighting the children to do the same. This is the nature of narcissistic abuse. I couldn't agree more with her. Barry selected Suzanne for his wife precisely because she was the opposite of him. A loving, giving empath who would meet his every demand. In their early days of courtship, Barry was romantic and attentive, working hard to persuade this amazing woman he'd be a fantastic husband. In the cycle of narcissistic abuse, that's termed the early love bombing phase. But pretty much as soon as the ring was on her finger, that changed. Barry took control, and he's kept it ever since. When Suzanne decided, after almost 30 years of his miserable abuse and control and her second bout of cancer, she was going to leave him, he killed her. Suzanne was never going to leave that marriage alive if the vile Barry Morphew had anything to do with it. You bet he controls his now adult daughters, just as he controlled and finally murdered their loving mother. And then it says, you're 100% correct, Jules. The arrest affidavit tells the story. That scumbag excuse for a husband poisoned his daughters against Suzanne just because in the last 2 years of her life, she had what was basically a virtual affair. She met the guy, a childhood sweetheart from innocent school days, just a handful of times over 24 months. She wasn't hanging around in bars, picking up random men, though frankly, who could blame her if she was? Her life would be cruelly stolen from her by her husband before even 50 years on the planet. So I'm just glad if that fleeting long-distance romance gave her a few smiles. My God, she deserved them. She was lonely, a domestic abuse victim, living with a toxic man, subjecting her 24/7 to his toxic, aggressive BS, and living with the shadow of death from cancer every single day, though it was a cancerous subhuman who would actually end her life. Like so many other domestic murder victims, poor Suzanne made the mistake of staying in the relationship too long, giving her abuser the opportunity to kill her. Ironically, the main reason she stayed was to protect her young adult daughters from living alone with their toxic dad. And this is how they repay her devotion. They are loyal to her killer. It's truly sickening, and it is textbook narcissistic abuse. The truth will out, and so will justice. Tick-tock, Barry. Justice has only been delayed by the incompetence of the prosecution under corrupt DA Linda Stanley. It has not been denied. Sleep with one eye open until it comes for you, scumbag wife killer, and it will. And her hashtags are Justice for Suzanne and domestic violence and no excuse for abuse. And I agree with her wholeheartedly. And I know that the most dangerous time for a person who is living in a domestic abuse situation is when they decide to leave, because that's when the abuser has nothing left to lose and it escalates into killing you. And that's one of the reasons why I am scared for Suzanne's daughters. As much as I am disappointed with them, I also want to show them grace and understand that they are likely being mentally, emotionally abused and financially abused by their father. And I hope that they have the good sense and the friends, etc., to help them get away from him and to do it without him getting wind of it beforehand.